Hello.
Hey, there is Coach. Questions for Coach?
Coach, first practice after the end of the preseason kind of slate of games. What was the energy like in today's practice?
It was good. Guys were upbeat. I thought we had good focus. We've got a lot of work to do. We've got 3 practices here today, tomorrow, and Tuesday. And then I think we've got 7 games in our first 11 days, so we really got to kind of pack the bags and get ready. But I thought we had a good first step in that today. Good cleanup from the games. Guys look good.
With that in mind, what was kind of the focus today, knowing that you've got those, a big, dense games coming ahead?
We did a good amount of layering today, to be honest with you. So we a couple different things that aren't really like core, identity things, but that you need in going into the season. And then as we get closer to the first game of the season, we'll, tap back into identity, system, that sort of stuff. So.
Did Kenrich practice today, and did he practice today?
Yes and yes. Yeah, Kenrich, that was his first day back, and he looked good. He took all the reps. Trey Mann left the game, obviously. He practiced. Roby left the game. He practiced. So availability was really good today. Yeah. Yep, he's back.
Ty said something interesting about Josh, and I've heard the phrase, like, he can make all the passes said about some other players, too. What does that mean exactly? Like, what are some passes that some players are able to make that maybe others wouldn't be able to?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, the ability, like some of the whip passes he's throwing, like across his body, across the court, with the velocity that allows the guy to get a shot. Sometimes you can throw that pass, but there's such air under it that the shooter, by the time the ball reaches them, the defender's closed. He's able to put that on a dime. There's also like some late developing plays where, he actually had a turnover on it last game where Muscala was rolling and he kind of saw that Muscala had a step and he kind of threw it to where he'd be. Like, I would say like anticipatory plays are really, really hard to like complete and to be okay with. Guys will sometimes try them and it's like, I don't know, might just want to eat that one. He's actually got the ability to do it. But I would say this, he can make every pass. What I think makes him pretty unique, especially at his age, is the fact that he can make every pass and yet he still takes the simple ones. So I liken it to a quarterback that checks down or throws the ball away. If the big play is not there, sometimes it's better to just take what the defense gives you. That's what good quarterbacks do. He does that, so not every pass he makes has a wow factor to it. He makes the simple ones too, and that's a pretty mature style for a young player that's got the skill set that he does.
Mark, have you settled on a starting center?
No, I haven't. I think those guys have all done a good job. They all bring something a little bit different. I think we'd be leaving an opportunity on the table to not try to utilize each of them in the ways that they can help the team, because you really can shift the style of your team that's on the court based on that spot, both offensively and defensively. And there's different needs that we're going to have, and using them to fill those needs is important. So I am non-committal on that because I see it as kind of a weapon where we can kind of utilize those guys as we see fit and not really corner ourselves into one style or one player. But yeah, I mean, we'll have one on Wednesday, that's for sure. We got to put someone out there.
And I have to ask this, you guys are one over the roster limit right now. Is there anything you can tell us about that final spot?
Nothing concrete other than we have a process, we're working through it, and it's coming. There's no official announcement, though.
Anybody else in the room? We will go to the Zoom. Schlecht, you got a question, Andrew? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just curious what it's been like to coach Alexei Pokusevski over the course of this preseason and what's been different about him.
Well, what's different about him is he's a better player than he was last season. He did a really good job with his body this summer. He did a good job with his game. He seems much more under control. He seems like he's playing at a much better pace. He's hanging in there physically, not only in the game, like taking contact and stuff like that. But he's hanging in there from a durability standpoint. I mean, he played 38 minutes the other night, and presented well the next day, which wouldn't have happened last year. And practiced well today, which I don't think he was physically capable of last year. So he's made a lot of improvements there. I think the next step for him, Andrew, is now that he's got the experience and he's kind of a little more on balance physically and with his game, is really kind of tightening the screws, which I thought the majority of the game, he got away from it a little bit at the end, but the majority of the game last game, I thought he did a really, really good job of taking what the defense gave him, of making simple plays, still being aggressive. That first stretch of the game, the first 30 minutes or so, was a great blueprint for him of the path forward of how to become a more efficient and more effective, productive player.
I have one more too. So Josh Giddey is the kind of the first pick of this process, where he's the first high pick of this process. And I was curious what you see in him and like what elite skills you see in him. Obviously the passing is there, but besides the passing, is there anything else that sticks out to you as like NBA elite from what you've seen?
I mean, I think his maturity and his IQ, kind of transcends the passing. The passing certainly falls underneath that. That's a really, really good skill of his. I also think, it's interesting because when you look at the draft and young players, I think a lot of people evaluate their ceilings and they look at their ceilings. And I think it's also important to evaluate their floors. And, if not necessarily focusing on what they can be great at, but focusing on what they're not bad at, And I think he's a pretty high floor player because he's got size. I think, obviously he's not afraid to shoot it. And I think once he starts taking a good diet of efficient shots, the shooting's just going to continue to improve because he's a worker. I think his defense is high floor defense. He's got a strong mind. He's got good feet and he's got good length. He rebounds for his position. I think he can guard some different people. I think you can use him in different spots. And so he obviously has a ceiling, and that's the part that's sexiest to focus on. But he's also got a floor, and with young players, I think that's important and sometimes overlooked.
Yeah, as a scorer, I just had one more question. Sorry.
Yep.
As a scorer, what do you see in him now, and then what do you see that needs to improve?
Well, the things, he's got some head of steam when he turns it on in transition, and when he turns a corner and pick and roll. Like, he's like a running back. He hits the hole. I've compared him now to a quarterback and a running back, so I got to choose a football position. But he hits the hole, with pretty good pace. So he's tall, but and he's kind of got that flimsy floor game. But when he decides to go, he goes. Which is, that helps you draw contact. It helps you hit the paint. There's a lot of, good benefits of that. I think the shooting, for sure, is going to have to be something. I think teams are going to try to gap him initially, not because he's a bad shooter, but because it's like the lesser of evils with the way that he passes the ball. So that's something that I think, just is going to have to continue to progress as he gets stronger, he gets more reps, as he gets more experience, as he learns which ones are a healthy diet for him to take. And then obviously you want to have multiple playmakers, and we've got a really good one in Shea, and we've got, someone that projects to be a pretty good one in him. And learning how to play with other really good players, which is not only a Josh thing, it's also a Shea thing. It's also a Poku thing. That's, as the team grows and as these players improve, that's going to become more and more of a skill. And being able to do that is critical if you want to have a good team. If you look at all the good teams, you got to share your toys.
Joe, you had another one?
Yeah, I'm just curious, just seeing Olivier and Justin in here. I know you guys are rolling through these Exhibit 10 guys that will likely play with the blue, but when they're here just for like a day or so, or whatever it may be, are you trying to get to know them a little bit? What is that process, or what do they gain by being here for kind of a short period?
Well, we look at our blue program and our summer league program as an extension of the program, and that's one of the benefits of having it here. It's a part of the organization, and those players are a part of the organization, and it's important for them. I did grab them, and I do with all the guys that come through. A lot of the guys that have come through are returning people that we've already had these conversations with, but we want them to feel a part of something. We want them to feel a sense of purpose when they're here. We want their experience to be really good here. We want this to be the best work they've done in their career, whether it's a blue player, last guy on the roster, or whether it's, Lou Dort. And so laying that out to them and letting them know that, like, this is a program that if you invest into and if you attack as a professional, it'll pay dividends to them individually and also to the program. They're critical parts of creating an environment there, so that when we send a two-way player there or when our guys go there, they're replicating the environment, and the environment comes from the people. And there's no one that has a greater impact on a team environment than the locker room, than the players. And so those guys need to feel a sense of responsibility when they're here. They're not just like contracted players that are stopping through. We really try to make everybody that's a part of our organization feel at home, whether it's for 10 days in summer league or whether it's a blue player for 1 year. In Hobson's case, it's his third year. So those guys are really, really important to what we're doing, especially, where we are developmentally. That program's going to be critical to supplement the development of guys that aren't getting as many minutes or opportunities here. And who they're around every day has a huge influence on that. I saw that firsthand when I coached there, and the power of that. That's really, really important. And for those two guys to understand that right off the bat's, important for us. Yep.
Anybody else? Looks like Andrew, do you have another one? I see your hand up.
I do.
Go ahead, bud.
I'm just curious about what Shea has been like through the preseason and through the training camp process. He's got his max deal. He is the leader of this team on the floor. I'm just curious what it's been like to work with him through the preseason.
First of all, it's great. He looks great physically, and it's great having him back. I'm like really impressed with his ability. I've said this before, but the thing that's unique about him, I think, is he's a real worker. He was just the last guy off the floor as we're talking here. That is very much in the moment of the day, and whether that's the game that he's competing in or the possession that he's competing in or the rep in the weight room that he's taking or the post-practice rep where he's shooting over Devon, one of our video guys. He's totally immersed in that and very present in that, and yet he understands bigger pictures. He understands the long game. Last game, he didn't really have it, rolling offensively, and there was a point in the second half where, I wanted to get him involved, and so I called a play for him that was basically a signal to him of hey, go ahead, bro. Come on. Let's gear it up here. Because, a guy like that, that's something you have to be conscious of as a coach. When a guy like him isn't, getting going, or you got to ignite him a little bit. And when I called the play, he put Josh on the ball, and meaning he basically handed the play off to Josh. And I was like, all right, he's in a different mode right now. He's in investor mode. He's in Buffett mode at the moment. Which, the guy's 23, Chris Paul did that. And I've seen other guys do that, but for a 23-year-old to do that when he's got 5 points coming off an injury, in a game where the other team's playing their dudes, and it's, we were treating that, he's got some way about him. So it's a pleasure to coach him. He's great for the environment, all the stuff we've always said. It's great to have him back. But that's a pretty unique quality. I know I've mentioned it before, but that was just a tangible example within the last few days.
I wanted to ask a question about Lou. Lou's had a lot of NBA experience in his short NBA career. He's played in a Game 7, played really well in a Game 7. But I just wondered what's different about him, what it's like coaching Lou Dort.
Great, just he's like a visceral competitor. You know, there's just some guys that they're just like their brains off when they're out there in a good way, like competitively. Like he's just like in the wild out there on the court, and I mean, the first blue game the guy ever played, that's what he played like. It's just who he is. That's contagious. It gives, especially our team that's younger, a lot of confidence. We obviously were disappointed in kind of the competitive edge we had in the Milwaukee game, and like the first 3 minutes of that Denver game, like he was there that night, you know, and he was making it very clear that we not only was he going to compete, but we were going to compete, and he just brings that, and it there's something about that, you know, that's pretty powerful for a team. And in terms of, you know, like the guy's humility is just ridiculous. You know, he's never like, I want the ball more, I want more shots. You know, the guy's like rolling in Milwaukee, and, you know, he's not looking over like, hey, where's my, you know, let me run here. He's just playing for the team at all times. And, you know, him and Shea, I'd throw Baisley in there, and then some of the older guys that are back, you know, I have no idea how our team's going to perform night to night. I have no idea where we're going. Things unfold naturally as they do, but I know that environmentally and team-wise, we're way on the right track with those guys just because of the way that they approach it, the way they attack the program, the way they compete, how professional they are. I mean, we're getting a lot right in the foundational stages of this thing because of those guys, and they're just so aligned with what we want to be. It gains so much momentum, and it compounds so quickly when you have guys that you're not trying to convince. They hear that stuff, and it naturally speaks to them. And Shea and Lou, Baisley, and some of these other guys have that, and it gives us a lot of optimism as we you know, head into the challenges of a season.
All right. Thank you, Coach. Thanks, everybody. That's a wrap for today.
See ya.
Enjoy.
Thanks, Coach.
Yep.